Hi everyone, this is Selvi. Today's topic is when can we skip the backlog refinement meeting or event? We all are aware of every Scrum event is very important and same is applicable to the backlog refinement event as well. But in this episode, we are going to discuss about when and what situations we can skip the backlog refinement event. For understanding about this particular topic, you want to understand about two parameters. One is product backlog health, and another one is what is the nature of your product backlog. So first one, let's try to understand about product backlog health. We already discussed in one of our episode a detailed episode on product backlog health, how to calculate it. So I'm not going to discuss about that topic here, but for people who have not listened to that episode, a kind request, please listen to that episode so that you will be able to understand how to calculate it and what is the importance of product backlog. But in a nutshell, we all are aware of what is average velocity. So generally, what is the product backlog health guidance is at least twice the average velocity. For example, if the average velocity is 30, uh, 2 multiplied by 30, that is 60. At least 60 story points are available in the product backlog, which are in the refined state. That is the expectation that we have. If we have that, then we can say that we are actually achieving 100% product backlog health, which means 60 out of 60. If it is less, only 30 story points are available in the product backlog that are in the refined state. That means we only achieved 50% because 30 divided by 60. So always product backlog health is represented in percentage and it has indication as well. We generally indicate it with red, amber and green to know what is the health status. If it is red, it is an alert situation, so that we should speed up our refinement sessions and have more refinement events so that we can increase the product backlog health. If it is amber, again it says that it needs improvement, so we will be conducting more backlog refinement events. If it is green, we are in a good position, which means the health is very good. So this is all about product backlog health. Why this topic is related to product backlog health? First thing, let's try to understand what is the product backlog health of our product backlog. And also we need to understand what is the categorization for this red, amber and green. How are we trying to categorize it? Is there any guidance? How are we achieving that? For example, in some projects you can see that 0 to 60%, less than 50% of product backlog health we indicate as red. 50 to 70% we indicate as yellow. 70 to 100% green. In some projects, less than 60% is red and 60 to 90 is yellow. 90 to 120 is green. So how are we giving this kind of categories? On what basis? That is the second factor, which is called as nature of your product backlog. What is the nature of the product backlog? We all are aware of one information, even we discussed in our latest episode, the characteristic of the product backlog, which is called as DEEP, DEEP. In that, one of the E stands for emergent. How our product backlog is emerging. Emerging means it will be keep on changing. There can be some addition happening, some removal of things happening, so many modifications basically happening. That's what product backlog is all about, right? It is not a static list of information, it is a dynamic list. It is a dynamic content where things will be keep changing. You can very well see that things will be keep getting added, removed, and sometimes the requirement itself becomes invalid. There are many situations which will be keep occurring, and those changes will first occur in the product backlog because it is the master backlog. And sometimes what happens, even after our refinement session or refinement event completes for a particular requirement, in another week we will get to know that requirement itself is invalid now because of the business changes, because of the marketing trends that are happening, changes from the understanding and the learning what we see from the trending topics. We don't want to continue with that requirement, but we would have invested good amount of time. So Basically, product backlog is a master list which is dynamic, which means we can expect lot of changes happening. But all projects product backlog is of same nature? No, it will change. Of course, it is a dynamic list, but how frequent things are changing, whether many times we see lot of changes coming in, or most of the times it's very much uh, minimal. What is the nature of our product backlog? Whether things keep on changing, or things undergo modification a lot, or it is very minimum. Who can help us with this information? Product owner is the best person who can help us with this information. First, try to understand from product owner what is the nature of our product backlog. Whether we see that our product backlog is changing a lot and so many changes are coming in, or it is more or less very minimum. How you can define it? Please put this question to the product owner. Now product owner will analyze and understand, okay, how frequent I am changing the product backlog. Is that weekly I'm connecting with the product management team, or I'm getting information from the product management team and keep updating the information, or it is very minimum? So with this information, what are we trying to get is, we are trying to understand, based on the nature of the product backlog, we should set this category also. Why? Let's say, for example, in the case of frequently things are changing, very frequently things are changing, then what is the best option? Best option is always you have the control of the refinement and not to do more refinement. Not to do. Don't do more refinement. Why? Because as things are keep changing very frequently, even if you invest lot of time for your backlog refinement event, and if you are keep on investing your time and updating the team with the information, later because of the frequent changes, you may able to see some of the requirements are getting removed and undergoing changes. So team is not going to utilize the time that they have invested for the refinement, because those time is actually not useful now because already the requirement got changed. So in those situations, why we need to set the product backlog health value as more? Why can't we stick to 100 or 110? Anyway, we need to stick to 100. Why? Because we know what is the product backlog health's importance. At least we want to ensure we have next two upcoming sprints work items are already refined and available in the product backlog. So in any case, we should not get blocked for the next two sprints execution. We are comfortable enough to manage. Even without refinement, we will be able to run the show. That's what product backlog health's importance is. So without calculating product backlog health, we will not be able to understand whether we are really in a situation to handle the next two sprints without refinement or not. So now it is important, but at the same time, where to set the threshold, where to see and when to stop, that is very important. So for the nature of product backlog, where things are keep changing, set your product backlog health indicator, green indicator, should not cross 110, which means if you are reaching 110 percentage, for example, you can set as 90 to 110 percentage category as green, 60 to 90 as amber, and less than 60 as red, which means you at least need to reach 100 percentage, at least more than 90 percentage, so that you can have some refinement events to balance it out. But don't cross 110. If you already reached 110 percentage, then you can skip one of your backlog refinement event. Generally, what is the practice? Every week 1 hour we will spend for backlog refinement. Let's say, for example, you are having the sprint length of 2 weeks. 2 hours you have planned. First of all, I have explained in one of our episode how to understand how much time is required for the refinement meeting. Just don't go with 1 hour, 2 hours just as a plan. Always try to pull that information from the pattern that you have observed in the previous backlog refinement events and then calculate it. So there is a separate episode for that. And now coming back to this topic, just try to avoid that meetings. Just you can skip that backlog refinement even. Why? The reason is you have already reached 110 percentage and you are in the second week of the sprint. You can very well ask your team to focus on the sprint execution, because already our product backlog health is very good and we are in the green, and we don't want to invest more time because we already know our product backlog's nature. It is of it actually undergoes more changes. I can put it in that way. It actually undergoes more changes. That's what we heard from our product owner. So in that kind of situation, 110 percentage itself is a very good status, and let's not invest more for our backlog refinement even. Let's pick it up in our next sprint. We will invest some time for backlog refinement even in our next sprint, not in the second week of this sprint. So now we understood for this situation. Let's take the next scenario where the product backlog nature is kind of static, which means it is a very matured product roadmap, and the backlog items are more or less already scoped, I can say, not refined, already scoped, and we don't expect more changes coming in. This is what the information we are getting from the product owner. Most of the time there will be minimum or zero changes that's happening during the refinement or after the refinement sessions in the product backlog for the work items. So it's very, very minimum. Once we are drafting it, more or less it is remaining as it is, because we have clear picture about the product, because we are long time working in the product. This is the information. So for this kind of projects, it is really worth if you even spend more than 130 or 140 percentage in green. So what you can set as 100 to 140 is green, or 90 to 140 is green, 70 to 90 is amber, and less than 70 is red. Because even here, if you invest and strengthen your product backlog, it is still worth. But again, one catch I'm mentioning here: just because the product backlog's nature is stable today, do not invest all your time in the backlog refinement without skipping any event. Just because as it is going to be stable, let's complete all the refinement of the backlog items. No, we should not do that, because general nature of the product backlog is it will be undergoing changes. But here, the extra factor for us is the nature of this product backlog is kind of static, but it is not completely static, kind of static, but still it is dynamic only by nature. But in this particular project, we are seeing no much changes, but it is not like zero changes. Changes are coming in, but it is very, very minimum. So in that case, you can even look for 120, 130 or 140, slightly higher. I'm saying slightly higher percentage you can fit for green category of the product backlog health. So again, if it is crossing that value, then please skip your backlog refinement sessions, because already you have reached a very good product backlog health, and more than this is not required, because again, we may miss the time if the requirement is becoming invalid or too many changes coming in the product backlog. So in a nutshell, whenever we want to skip the backlog refinement event, we need to first understand whether it is required or not. But at the same time, we need to logically think here, what is the situation we are going through with respect to two factors. One is the nature of your product backlog, and second one is what is the product backlog health and how we can categorize it. How to categorize it? Categorization can happen with the help of the nature of the product backlog, how frequently it is changing. Who can provide the information? Product owner can provide the information. Based on that, set this product backlog health indicators, so that it will give you a kind of good range, so that you can manage whether you are really in green or not according to the nature of your product backlog. And once you are reaching that level, please ensure that you are not spending again time in that particular sprint, but also ensure you are maintaining a good product backlog health. Do not skip always. That is not a good pattern, and that is also not a good practice to follow. But at the same time, if we ensure too many things getting refined in the product backlog, and the backlog health is also too much in the green too much more than the green category, it is always a risk thing. We would have refined so many things which may in future become an invalid item. So to avoid that, let's plan it in this way. I think this episode would have helped you all to understand when a backlog refinement even can be skipped, with some kind of calculations as well, understanding our nature of the project and where are we with respect to the product backlog health. Thank you everyone for listening. Happy learning and stay tuned.